You're listening to Answering the Call, the official podcast of the 12th Man Foundation. Our show provides listeners with an insider perspective of Texas A&M athletics and its greatest supporters. This podcast will bring you exclusive interviews with coaches, athletes, donors, and the dedicated staff of Aggie Athletics and the 12th Man Foundation. You ready? Let's dive into today's episode. Howdy, and welcome back to another episode of Answering the Call podcast, the official podcast of the 12th Man Foundation. This is your host, Ivy Robinson, and today I am in studio with Aggie women's tennis head coach, Mark Weaver. Coach Weaver, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show.
Coach Weaver, you are a graduate of Texas A&M yourself and a former Aggie student athlete. Can you kick off this episode by telling our listeners about your background and what led you ultimately to Texas A&M?
Yeah, it's quite a story. I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, and way back when in the late 80s, the recruiting was a lot different back then. So not all the social media, not all the text messaging, and you might get a call once a month on your landline phone. So there wasn't a ton of information out there as far as programs and universities, and I feel like nowadays it's just you're one little Instagram away from kind of knowing the coach and knowing the players and knowing the success of the teams. And yeah, I was recruited by quite a few different places, and once I came to visit Texas A&M, I kind of knew it was a place for me. I came for an unofficial visit back in '89. I actually came with my high school girlfriend at the time, and it was she was actually going to visit Aggieland and some other school in Austin we won't name. She was going to come visit with her parents and asked if I'd like to tag along, and I said, sure, I'll come along. And yeah, it's quite a funny story. We just kind of showed up unannounced at the old tennis facility. We just watched the men's practice up in the stands, and Coach Kent, who I didn't really know at the time, he didn't really know my face or anything at the time. He just starts talking to us. He's down on the courts, so we're up in the stands, and he asked where we're from, and I said Shreveport, Louisiana, and he said, oh, there's a really good tennis player from Shreveport, Louisiana. And I said, oh yeah, who's that? And he said, Mark Weaver. And I said, I'm Mark Weaver. So he kind of comes running up in the stands, and here I am sitting here now talking to you all. Ever how long that's been now, since 1989. Yeah, I actually came back for an official visit with my father, and just knew 100% sure in my heart that Texas A&M was a place for me.
I love this story, and I'm so glad you brought it up. I wanted to ask you about it, but I was going to wait and see if you brought it up first. But if anyone who's listening has read Coach Weaver's feature story in 12th Man Magazine, it was mentioned in that story how you happened to come to Texas A&M with your high school girlfriend, and I just think that's awesome. Like, as fate had it, I mean, that's where you're supposed to be. And how funny with Coach Kent, just like, well, there's a good player in Shreveport, and you're like, well, that's me. I'm Mark Weaver. That's just too good. Coach, you mentioned you came back after that interaction with your dad for an official visit. From my understanding, your dad introduced you to the game of tennis, correct?
That is exactly correct. At the time, tennis was really popular in the whole country, and even Shreveport, Louisiana was very popular. I was actually listening to a little podcast from John McEnroe the other day, and he was actually talking to how tennis kind of in the 70s and 80s was every bit as viewed as much as like the NBA. So it was so popular back then. And my dad kind of just took up tennis in his early 30s, and he was a really good athlete, and he was a basketball player and took up tennis. And yeah, he just kind of learned by watching. We used to watch videos together. He read a lot of books, and I kind of had my own personal coach. We'd go just kind of walk a few blocks, sometimes drive to the local junior high school. It had, the gray concrete courts, the chain link nets, and wasn't quite much to see, but we kind of had our own little tennis courts in our background. And yeah, I owe so much credit to my father, and both my parents for kind of all the sacrifices that they made for me. But yeah, he still comes to a lot of the matches still today, and both my mom and dad both watch the matches back home if they can't quite make it here to watch us play. So they're both very heavily involved. And yeah, it's quite just choosing to come to Texas A&M. It never would have happened without all my parents' sacrifices. But yeah, it's just opened up so many amazing doors for me. That decision I made a long time ago, back in 1989.
Man, okay, I'm just curious. What did your dad instill in you as he was coaching you as a young tennis player that you still utilize or maybe teach your athletes to this day?
Yeah, I mean, it's just I feel like nowadays so many coaches they like to kind of make it out to there's some magical formula to being a great tennis player, and it's just not that way. I don't really coach in the other sports, but it's just all about hard work and doing the right things. We're a very blue collar program that we just we roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty, and we put the work in. I never mislead anyone. I think there's a lot of you can put on a YouTube clip, and
Mhm.
someone in a much better accent than I have will sound very cool, and it's easy to kind of buy all that stuff, but it's just about working hard. You put in the
Mhm.
work, you train hard, you do the right things. And I think, yeah, my father really instilled the work ethic. And yeah, not to sound corny, but I feel like that's a lot of what Texas A&M is: hardworking people that put their heads down and get after it. It's no secret formula to our success. It does all start with recruiting. You've got to find the right kids that are hungry and want to get better. And yeah, we just get down the business. We put the work in, and we have a champions in a mindset. And our girls are most all more focused on they want to be professional tennis players and want to get better. It's one of our silly mottos: let's get better today. And it's as
Mhm.
simple as that is. I think a lot of programs perhaps get lost in a lot of things that don't really matter. We just trying to get better.
Yeah, just getting back to the basics and the
Mhm.
foundation of what makes a good team and a good culture and a program.
Mhm.
Let's go back to Coach Kent and when you were officially offered a scholarship opportunity to play tennis at Texas A&M. Tell us how that came about and what you felt when you received that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, the scholarship opened up so many doors. I ended up being the first Weaver to ever graduate from a university. So I can still remember being in Coach Kent's office with my father, and I was worried that I wasn't going to be even good enough to be on the tennis team. And I can still remember my father telling Coach Kent, "My son Mark's going to be your number one tennis player." And I was a little bit kind of embarrassed at the time,
Where you're
but
like, no pressure, man. Yeah.
exactly. But it's just one of those things where it was just this amazing opportunity, and all the hard work that was put into it. It's just opened up so many doors
Hmm.
for me. And I can even just remember back in '94, my senior year, I can vividly remember wanting to be a tennis coach and be a tennis coach at Texas A&M. And I can remember practice. It was a windy day back out at the Omar Smith Tennis Center. And yeah, it was just, I'm not big into any type of like premonitions or
Hmm.
anything,
Hmm.
but I just had this vivid thought in my head. I wanted to be a coach, and I wanted to be a coach at Texas A&M. And it took me a little while to get my foot in the door. I started as the volunteer coach in '99 for 8 years, and the assistant coach for 8 years, and the head coach for 9 years now. So it's 26 total seasons added in with 4 years of a player. So, but yeah, I've spent more than half my life here now.
Quite a journey. It's really remarkable. You mentioned in that response, your senior year of 94 is when you decided and you had that thought, like, I want to be a head coach or a coach at Texas A&M and coach tennis and continue to contribute and give back to the sport that you love so much. What do you think drove that decision ultimately?
That's a tough one there. I do think it was kind of, I mean, I guess tennis is what I knew, and kind of what opened up doors for me. And yeah, Texas A&M, without that scholarship, I never would have been able to get the education that I was able to receive. I think perhaps nowadays a lot of people maybe take that for granted a little bit.
Hmm.
So just the value of the scholarship, that's ultimately what we're here for, is to get our degree, and that opportunity is what opened up the doors for me. And it's one of those things where you kind of can take for granted. And yeah, I'm just always will be forever thankful for that opportunity.
I know during your time as a tennis student athlete, you won many conference titles and made NCAA appearances. How did those experiences influence how you connect with your players and develop your players?
Yeah, I think it helps. You don't necessarily have to be a player to be a good coach, but I do feel like you have a lot of experiences of knowing what it feels like, and knowing it feels like the pressure. There's a lot of pressure on the kids out there in every sport: pressure to perform, pressure to to compete and pressure to win. And, I think you have to kind of remind yourself of, I know what it feels like when you're playing for your team. Tennis is such an individual sport, and this is one of the few times in college where you can be a part of a team, where you're playing for each other, you're playing for your university, and it's a lot of pressure out there, in our scoring system. In a 3-all match, it may
Mm-hmm.
come down to your last match, and the whole match rides on your court. So I think it's a lot of those things have kind of prepared me to, when you're talking to your players on the changeover on the bench, I think it kind of can help you know how to relate and communicate with them. Because so much of it's not necessarily always about the X's and O's. It's helping
Mm-hmm.
them get in the right mindset and, good positive mindset, and working on your breathing between the points, your routines between the points, and just trying to get them in a good mental place. A lot
Right.
of times it's more about that than necessarily should you serve to their forehands, serve to their backhands. So.
What percentage of tennis would you say is mental?
Yeah. There's a lot of sayings out there. I guess, it's definitely largely mental over physical. So when you get to this level, everybody's really, really good. So I would say easily 90%
Mm-hmm.
it's mental. It all starts with the belief. You got to have the belief that my father had in me. You got to have that belief in yourself. And on the big points, you got to have that champion's mindset of you got to take it from your opponent. You can't just wait around for it to happen. And I think it's just so much in your belief system. And you got to really stay in the present moment in tennis. You can't get stuck on the past. You can't think about the point before. It's what am I doing right here at this moment to help me play this next point in front of you. It's just all about resetting your mind. There's a stat I shared with my girls, the greatest tennis players of all time. They did a stat. It's Rafael Nadal only won 52% of the points he played in his career. Roger Federer only won 53% of the points he won in his career. Novak Djokovic was 54% points of his career. The stats is only on the male side. I'm sure it's the same on the female side, but it's really interesting that you're basically only winning over slightly half of your points. So, if you're getting hung up with the 50% you're losing, you're not going to be in a very good state of mind.
So it's keeping that glass half full mentality, right? Like focusing on the good, not the bad. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you spent time, I know, playing professionally on the Futures and Challengers circuits after your time as a student athlete at Texas A&M. Can you tell us about that specific season of your life and how it led you to that first volunteer coach position back at Texas A&M?
Those are some interesting years for me. Back then, no one really prepared you for the pro tour. I like to think that we're able to prepare our girls a lot better about what to expect out there. It was just kind of this unknown, uncharted territory for me. And my father helped me a ton with getting me to a certain point, but I never really had any good guidance necessarily on what to do out on the pro tour. And I do think that's something that we've kind of really embraced here, of maybe knowing that was some things I was lacking in. A lot of it was just kind of just ignorance in a way of, taking better care of your mind, taking
Mhm.
better care of your body. And, we didn't really know what to eat back then. So I like to think that we're helping our team with those. And yeah, I did it kind of off and on for about 3 years. I had a really good kind of first year. And unfortunately, my brother passed away back in
Mm.
96. And that was something that I took pretty hard. And I took some
Mhm.
time off from that. And then I came back for about maybe it took off about 6 months, and I came back and played for about another year. My heart really wasn't into it all that
Mhm.
much, and I was actually probably getting better and better in my doubles. My tennis game was kind of headed in the wrong direction. The doubles, maybe I could have made it in the doubles. Back then there was really the financial piece of the doubles wasn't really all that good. So, in hindsight, I might have wished I had focused on doubles a little bit more and perhaps could have made a little bit more of a career out of it. But I knew my time was done. I just was a little bit just kind of like mentally and physically exhausted from the tennis, and I knew the time was right. I actually had an offer to come coach on the men's team back in probably '98, and just didn't quite have the tennis out of my system. So I did it for about another year, and yeah, and then ultimately I moved back to Bryan, the College Station in '99. There was a great job opportunity for me at Briarcrest Country Club, and Coach Bobby Kleinecke, the longtime head women's coach here of over 20 years. We had had a good relationship. Bobby and Coach David Kent were great friends and worked together for a long time. And finally got my foot in the door as his volunteer coach. So I did that for about 8 years while I was at Briarcrest Country Club. And yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. I knew my tennis playing days were over, but I wanted to stay in the competitive side of tennis.
Yeah. And how have you seen, I mean, the Aggie women's tennis program evolve during your tenure, during your time at Texas A&M?
I think I was able to kind of take in a lot of information that I learned as a player, a lot of things I learned through Coach Kleinecke. I worked with Howard Joffe for about 4 years and just learned a lot of things from him. And I just kind of gathered a bunch of information of what really matters and what doesn't matter, what really works and what doesn't work. And I've been fortunate to have some really good assistant coaches here. And I've definitely learned it's definitely not a one-man show. It's quite a demanding job, but there's a lot of facets to the job, from the recruiting of the team, the managing the team. You can definitely get pulled in a lot of different directions as the head coach, and you definitely have to have a great cast around you. And yeah, we have such great resources now. That's just something we're very fortunate here at Texas A&M, from the 12th Man Foundation to our athletic department, just great staff that we have work with. I tell our recruits all the time, everything's here for you to be successful. You just got to reach out and grab it. We got this amazing food we get to eat every day here. You need a tutor for any class, you can go visit with the sports psychologist. We got great fitness coaches. We've got great physio trainers. There's really nowhere on earth, in my opinion, that can help you be the world-class athlete that you want to be in every sport across the board. So,
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned resources, and that's a huge part of the 12 Man Foundation's mission is funding scholarships, programs, and facilities in support of championship athletics to help our student athletes have access to world-class resources that will set them up for success here. And after they leave Texas A&M one day, once they go on, once they graduate, once they enter maybe the pro circuit. And many of our listeners on this podcast right now are 12 Man Foundation donors and the very individuals who give back and want to see our student athletes succeed. So can you talk a little bit more about how you have seen donor support impact the success of your program?
It's such a neat, close-knit community I feel like we have out here, and our donors are just doing an amazing job of help providing this amazing state-of-the-art facilities we have all across campus. We provide our students with the best of the best, and I feel like College Station with Texas A&M is as big as the university is. We are such a close-knit family, and I think even like a sport of tennis, these families that have been so generous with their contributions, they can kind of just walk right up to us before a match or after a match. It's neat to see the donors mingling with our student athletes, and it really is kind of this up close and personal feeling that we have with our donors out there. And there's fans that still come out for the matches that used to watch me play 30 something years
awesome.
ago. So that's pretty neat. And yeah, it's just been neat even to see some of our older fans. In a lot of ways, there's a lot of newer, younger fans and donors that are coming out and supporting our team. And I'm just so thankful for, we've been very fortunate with our success. And it's been really neat to see everyone really kind of embracing what we've been fortunate enough to do. And yeah, we just ask for the continued support, and it's really neat. I get text messages so often from our donors, and and it's just they're proud of what we're doing, and we hope that we can keep making them proud.
That's fantastic. I mean, you mentioned success, and what do you think has been key to maintaining such consistent excellence in your program over these recent years?
Yeah, we've been fortunate. We have this culture that we've worked on hard for quite a while, and it's gotten the point where, yeah, you've got to have the talent, but we have this culture of the girls just get after it. I have two new first-year coaches with me that are doing a great job, James Wilson and Tommy Milnikov, and they both played college tennis. James has been coaching college tennis for a long time, and I think they're just still like pretty much in awe of how our girls get after it. I mean, like, there's not a day I can remember in 5-10 years where it wasn't this A plus effort that's given
Hmm.
out there and the intensity. And I think that's been able to lead to our consistency. Obviously, you can't win all the time, but we've been able to maintain a pretty high level of consistency. And I think it's just that work ethic that we bring in and day out. And yeah, I think it all starts with the culture.
Do you think you mentioned A+ effort in the girls and just how they act on the court, right? How they prepare, how they treat each other. Do you see them giving A+ effort as well in the classroom?
I do. Yeah, I mean, I think each kid comes in kind of a different mindset of maybe they're here mostly for tennis or mainly for
Mhm.
tennis. Some maybe are a little bit more focused on the academic piece than others, but at the end of the day, they all really respect the academic piece of it, and they do quite well. And it's challenging that people don't realize how much we're gone. I think out of all the sports, we actually miss more class, I think, than any program here. We're gone a lot, miss a lot of school, just the way the scheduling's set up. Most SEC weekend matches are 5-day trips. Or you oftentimes if we get home at 2 a.m. in the morning on a Monday, we actually feel like that's not so bad. We're
Man,
getting in 2, 3 a.m. a lot of times on Mondays, and I just don't think people realize how demanding it is. And our girls do a great job of staying on top of their schoolwork and staying ahead of the game, but it's tough. You're physically worn down, mentally worn down, and
mhm.
yeah, but they do a great job. We haven't had too many issues in the classroom, so I credit the girls for all the hard work they've put in on the court and off the court.
That's awesome. Going back to the national championship, can you walk us through the emotions you felt when Nicole Curran clinched the match in Stillwater, Oklahoma on May 19th, 2024 to earn the program's very first national title? I'm sure that was just a feeling that you just really can't describe, right?
Yeah, it really is a feeling you can't describe. For years and years and years, I was told quite often by so many people that we would never win a national championship in women's tennis here. And those are the type of things that kind of really motivate me.
Mhm.
And yeah, just a pretty wild range of emotions and just the way that whole match played out. We had lost to University of Georgia 3 times already that season, and we played them again in the finals. And I felt really good going into the match. We thought it was going to be an outdoor match, and it rained, and we went indoors. And for whatever reason, though, I never believed more that we were going to win a match than that match. I just truly knew it deep in my heart. Like, I'm usually pretty
Wow. Yeah.
poker faced with my coaches and my friends. I'll normally say, "Oh, we'll need to play well," and like I just absolutely knew we were going to win the match. I don't really know how to explain that, but when we went indoors, we were a little bit down in the doubles point, and it's just this electrifying atmosphere in the doubles. I've never been a part of anything like it. The girls were just lights out. Every court was just blasting a winner here, and just the electricity of the crowd. It was a mostly Aggie crowd, and I've never been a part of a more energetic match. And then, yeah, as the matches were playing out, it's like, I mean, we were winning in almost every single court. So, as a coach, you're trying to find what's the formula to get the 4 points, and you're kind of looking at every court, and it's like, wow, we could get the 4 here, we could even get the 5 here, and 6 there, and yeah, and we were pretty much in control of the last couple of matches remaining. And yeah, once Nicole won that last point, it was just, yeah, just an exhilarating feeling. And we were stuck in Stillwater for another 5 or 6 days afterwards with the individual event. And I went to
Mhm.
sit on that same bench almost 4 or 5 straight days, just kind of reminiscing that last point there. And
So
yeah,
you really got to soak it all in.
soak it
Yeah.
all in. So people were even teasing me about it. It's people were in there watching. I'd kind of go have my sandwich in there and just sit on the bench there. And yeah, it's just a memory for a lifetime. And there's still plenty of mornings where I wake up and I'm like, wow, we're the national champions. You get so caught up in your job and the recruiting and what we need to do in practice today. And yeah, I'll have to sometimes shake myself. We're the 2024 NCAA national champions. So.
Yeah. I mean, how are y'all building off of that success for this season? I mean, the bar is set very high. I mean, national championship. So What did you tell your girls at the beginning of this season to start the 2024-2025 tennis season and to really kind of prepare their minds and set them straight and get them ready for another season? Because I'm sure they're wanting to repeat that.
Yeah, they're really wanting to repeat it, and yeah, the bar is really high, and oftentimes that pressure you feel, it can kind of sometimes be a little self-inflicted pressure. But yeah, believe me, our fans are wanting another one, and then in some ways expecting another one. It's not that easy, but I do know if we do the right things like we do, we will be able to put ourselves in that position again. And things have to fall in the right place. You got to be healthy. You got to win the big matches. You got to come up with the big points. But a lot of people have asked me, well, you need to talk to your team. Don't get complacent. And honestly, I just haven't even had to have that conversation. So
Mhm.
it's just a hungry group that works hard and gets after it. If right after the NCAA tournament, most of our girls were out playing pro tournaments. They were
Right.
playing pro tournaments in the fall, and I've seen no pulling back or anything. So I haven't even had to have that conversation of let's don't be complacent. It's a hungry group that wants to do it again. And yeah, if we can just keep doing the right things and stay healthy, we'll keep putting ourselves in positions to hopefully win another national title. So
And I'm sure when the girls come in, when you recruit athletes, some of them really have that goal to go play pro tournaments on the weekends, but some might just be more focused on playing in season and really focused on their academics here at Texas A&M. So how do you balance that approach to, I'm sure your coaching is very individualized
Mhm.
per student athlete, correct? How do you balance and manage that?
Yeah, it's a tough. This year has been the toughest of trying to manage all that. We have some of the best in college tennis, and it's this kind of fine line of a couple girls could have turned pro, and we were able to retain them here. And it's been kind of let's all work together on a plan that can be helpful to you individually, but also not hurt our tennis team,
Hmm.
which that's the ultimate reason why everybody's here. And maybe in an individual sport I have to be reminded of that
Hmm.
sometimes. And yeah, basically we'll meet with each girl kind of the first week or two of the fall season and give me your wish list. So
Hmm.
we'll kind of some will maybe already have it written out, some will verbally tell me, I'll write it down, and I'll try to manage it all to make all this work. There's X amount of matches we can play in the season. There's only 25 competitive dates that we can play. We generally play 3 or 4 in the fall and 21 or 22 in the spring, making the 25. That doesn't count the SEC tournament or the NCAA tournament, nor does the national indoors. So yeah, you kind of have to manage how many pro events can we get away with without hurting the team. And yeah, it's we've been able to make it all work. I've been very fortunate to hire 2 excellent coaches, so we've kind of been spread around a lot. This fall is the busiest fall we've ever had, and we'll have one coach off at a pro event, maybe another coach is off at a college event, and then the other coach is home training the team, or maybe doing a recruiting
Wow. So it's
visit. So
truly dividing and conquering, right?
it
Yeah.
is, and honestly, not until probably the 3rd or 4th week in January where we all actually together as a group. But yeah, we've all been able to make it work and pull together, and yeah, that's a big part of how we're getting some of the top players is this kind of pro model that we have. And we've been fortunate. Texas A&M has kind of embraced our kind of recruiting philosophy and what we're trying to do, and we've all been able to make it all work.
That's awesome. Hey, Coach Weaver, I know you've coached 11 Aggies to 19 All America designations. Can you share maybe a memorable story about developing one of these players? Do any of the stories stand out in your mind?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have one story. I'll try to think about it right quick, but it's definitely something that we're proud of. It's not easy becoming an all American. I know back in my playing days, I missed it by a hair about 3 years in a row. So it took me a while to kind of get over that I was always so close there and never quite get it. So I think I always am very happy for our girls when they do get that All American award, because yeah, that's something you can have on your resume for the rest of your life.
Mm.
And I always feel very happy for them to get that prestigious award. I guess I knew what it felt like not to get it. So when our girls do get it, I'm always just very ecstatic for them. And yeah, we've kind of, I would say, probably since maybe 2012, we've had, maybe one almost, maybe not every season, but just about every season. Whereas before we didn't really have all that many. And yeah, I believe Rachel Pearson was the first one, maybe back in 2016, maybe. She got it in singles and doubles. And we've actually kind of had maybe around the handful now that have both gotten it in singles and doubles, which isn't all that easy to do. But yeah, I wish I had maybe one specific example, but I'm always very proud and happy for the girls when they do get that prestigious award.
Absolutely. I mean, you've coached so many great players, and obviously one that comes to probably a lot of people's minds, and my mind specifically, is Mary Stoyana. And she actually achieved something unprecedented by becoming the program's first ITA National Player of the Year and Honda Award winner. What stood out about Mary during that 2023-2024 season? And can you speak to her character a little bit and how she's really impacted just Aggie women's tennis, the program in general?
Yeah, well, I'm going to start out with saying my daughter's biggest fan right now is Mary Stoyana. The reason why, my daughter Natalie's, she's 12 years old. She's been begging me to take her to New York City for a while to go to the Broadway plays, and then so Mary won the Honda Award there, and so that opened up the door of.
Oh, that's perfect.
My daughter Natalie went with me up there, and we had a blast to celebrating Mary, and yeah, they had the neat CBS Awards production, and the most important thing for my daughter is we went to a couple Broadway plays there.
What did y'all see?
We went to see the Six, the musical, which was her favorite, and then we also went to the Michael Jackson show. So
fun.
I earned a lot of points there thanks to Mary. So, but yeah, Mary's just the ultimate professional. She's truly gotten better every year, and just her hunger to learn about the game, it's unprecedented. And every day, I mean, she almost challenges us as coaches of wanting more information, wanting, just what can I do to get my forehand better? What can I do to get my serve better? And it's not always us coming at her. She's just wanting to absorb and take in as much information as she can. She's a real student of the game, and it's pretty amazing. She's just always grasping for more and more knowledge and information, and she's such a great athlete, especially as far as what's needed as an athlete in tennis. She's a very good mover. She's very agile on the court, just really well balanced on the court, and yeah, she does so many good things like off the court. I know she's a bit in the yoga, and then you can kind of see it in the way she kind of slides and stretches around the court. And I don't think anyone does a better job of resetting between the points. Kind of I spoke a little bit earlier about kind of being in the moment. That yoga mentality kind of really helps you stay in the moment and the breathing. And I've never seen anyone that can turn matches around the way that she does, but she's just always just every day just what can I do to be a better tennis player? So.
Man, just remarkable. And if anyone's listening to this episode and would like to learn more about Mary's story, you can go to 12thmanfoundation.com and watch Mary Stoyana's. It's a mini documentary about her, but it's called Mary Stoyana's My Aggie Story. And it's just a great way to learn about her journey to Texas A&M. She's from Southbury, Connecticut, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. And long way to travel and come down to Texas A&M, but we're so glad that she decided to come to the Aggie women's tennis program, and what a remarkable student athlete. So Coach Weaver, after achieving a national title, what goals and aspirations do you have for the future of Texas A&M women's tennis?
Yeah, I just want to be able to kind of continue that level of consistency. Yeah, of course, we'd like to win it all every year. Well, of course, we'd like to win the SECs every year. And, that's obviously no program can maintain that, but we want to just continue to be, I think being a top 10 program year in, year out is realistic. Barring, lots of things can happen from injuries to losing a lot of close matches. Sometimes, things are just out of your control, but I just want to maintain that high level, and it'd be hard to go backwards, I guess you'd say. But, we want to recruit the right student athletes that we want here representing Texas A&M. And yeah, ultimately we want to win championships. I'd like to think we're helping them prepare for life. And I think in a lot of ways, tennis does that. It really teaches you adversity and overcoming difficult situations. Life's not always that easy, and I think the challenges that, any athlete here at Texas A&M goes through, instilling with them life skills that can help prepare them for the tough journey of life. But yeah, we want to keep recruiting the right kids here. And I'd like to look back whenever I do decide to call it a career. Whenever I do retire, I love to think that most of my group would come back and or at least stay in communication with me. And that's one thing as a coach is, when you do hear back from your former players, you kind of know you've done it the right way. So I hope that we can keep continuing those types of kids that are grateful and thankful for the opportunities they've had to come here to Texas A&M.
What would be your advice to an individual who is aspiring to play tennis in college, maybe also an individual who is aspiring to be a tennis coach?
Yeah, I think to be a student athlete at Texas A&M, it's the lead of the lead. So, I think a lot of times when kids are younger, they maybe are playing a variety of sports. At some point, you got to just ultimately decide on what sport it is that you want to focus on. It's just so competitive and challenging these days. So, I think you've got to really just decide what you really want to do. And, as far as just being a tennis player in specific, you need to have a good coach. Like, you have to have a good coach. You have to have a good support system. And, it's a weird one in tennis. When you play high school tennis, that normally doesn't mean that you're going to go play at a university like Texas A&M. So you really have to go through the USTA system, playing in the national events, playing in the international events. But yeah, you just have to be willing to make a lot of sacrifices. If you're wanting to live the good life and have fun, it's going to be pretty hard to come to play for an elite program like us. You have to really be fully invested of this is what you want to do, and you got to be willing to give up a lot of things. And if you are able to get to this level, you'll recognize all those sacrifices have truly paid off. And yeah, I think as far as wanting to be a coach, I think you just need to get into this profession for the right reasons. So if you're just in it to get a paycheck, you're probably not going to really enjoy it all that much, and you're probably doing the wrong thing. And maybe that'd be the same story for a lot of jobs out there. I think you've got to really do it for the right reasons and have a passion for what you're doing. And you've got to have the best interests of the student athlete at hand. If you're only worried about your own individual desires and your individual career, like, it's going to be pretty miserable. I think you always have to put the student athlete first, and you just have to always realize that's what you're here for. You're here to help them through their troubles and their tough times. And I oftentimes tell the girls, in order to be successful in tennis or successful in life, you got to enjoy what you're doing. And if you're not helping your players be in a good, positive, happy and environment, I think you're going to have a tough time having a successful program. So I think you've got to put the kids' well-being in first place, and always remind yourself that's far more important than winning or losing championships.
Yeah, like that's truly what really matters, right? In the realm of coaching. I completely forgot to ask you about this earlier when we were talking about resources and just the facilities we have here at Texas A&M, but I want to know your thoughts on the locker room renovations at the George P. Mitchell Tennis Center. Tell us what you think about those renovations.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for the 12th Man Foundation, and our girls are just ecstatic about the locker rooms. Are state of the art, and I want to just thank all of our 12th Man employees. Lauren Hickey in specific has done an amazing job of being the leader with that campaign. She's reached out to so many people, and she's introduced me to the majority of them, and it's been neat for me to kind of get a personal relationship with our donors out there. And yeah, it's been very impressive what we've been able to do. The donations been coming in or continuing to come in. So just truly appreciate all that. I know that's not an easy thing often for people to do, to give their hard-earned money and to do it for our women's tennis program. just seeing the joy on our girls' faces when we had the grand ceremony for the locker rooms, it was yeah, they were just truly ecstatic. Even I had a lot to do with at least kind of sitting in meetings and kind of helping, some of the design work, and it actually far surpassed anything I actually thought it was going to be. You kind of see sketches of, oh, I like this or I like that, and it actually it surpassed what I actually thought it was going to be. And we've been able to redo the court servicing. I feel like the court servicing's better than it's ever been, probably since Mitchell Tennis Center was opened in '98. We have completely redone the courts. The lighting is about 2 or 3 levels better than it ever was before with the LED lighting, and the training rooms as well. And things are just looking better and better everywhere, just touching up little areas here and little areas there. And yeah, it's starting to look really, really good over there.
Man, yes. And like Coach Weaver said, we just thank every single supporter who has contributed to those facilities and who are contributing to the success of Aggie women's tennis. And I'm so glad that y'all are enjoying those new facilities and definitely deserving for sure. So, Coach, outside of tennis, you talked about this earlier, just how awesome the camaraderie and the fan support that we have here at Texas A&M. But outside of tennis, what does the community of Bryan College Station personally mean to you?
Yeah, it's really neat. It's just such a neat community where you're recognized. Like, I think that's lost a lot at many other places. It's just neat, the college town that we are, and it's just a really close knit Bryan College Station, Texas A&M, and I've told our recruits quite often, there's very few places where we get the crowd support that comes out like we do in a sport like in tennis, and you can go to the grocery store or go to the movies, and people are like, oh, she plays on the tennis team. And even today I've had like 2 different people come up to me and say, oh yeah, my employee was streaming y'all's match the other day against Georgia, and one of the trainers was like, yeah, my new trainer, she had the match on the other day. And it's just so neat to kind of hear those types of things, and just our fans are excited. And yes, the people oftentimes remind me of how proud they are of us, and they're all pulling for us. And I don't think there's any other place like Aggieland where we pull together the way we do, and we have just the ultimate fan base, that's for sure.
It's incredible. Going back a little bit to just the program success, and this is kind of changing topics a little bit, but personally, I'm just curious. In this modern age of college athletics, we both know that name, image, and likeness has crept in. It's kind of dominated, obviously, football, basketball. Are NIL opportunities working their way into college tennis? Have you seen that? And how has it impacted maybe some of your players, or have you seen it impact other players at other universities?
Yeah, the timing of how it kind of came in the door in tennis, it was interesting. It definitely started in the bigger sports, as you mentioned, and it's kind of gradually creeped into tennis. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out going forward with the house settlement. In some ways, it's just been a big learning experience, kind of for me, and it just hadn't really been an issue much at all until kind of mid to late summer, and when the whole transfer portal kicked in. And it's one of those things where you really even you hear information, and then not until you actually deal with it kind of hands on do you realize, oh wow, this is actually kind of starting to happen. So
Right.
yeah, it is kind of towards the around the August months. And yeah, even when we were trying to maybe get some spring enrollees, there were a couple situations that kind of popped up kind of November, December, that you just weren't quite ready for, because it's like this ever changing thing that's been going on. So it's been
Right.
a little bit of a learning curve, perhaps for me, and even all the coaches out there. And it's starting to pick up a bit. I wouldn't say it's all that much, but we're kind of just waiting to see how this all plays out going forward. We're hearing that NIL deals going forward has to be like market value, and
Mhm.
we're trying to kind of figure out what that all means. But we're going to work on. I think we'll have a really good plan going forward for our team of what we can, what we can't do. And I know there's some people out there that are wanting to kind of help us come up with a good model going forward once we kind of truly know and learn what that means going into the next season. So
Yeah. And finally, Coach Weaver, for those listening today who are interested in supporting the Aggie women's tennis program, what can they do and how can they help?
I would just love for our donors and our fans to come out to the courts, get to know the girls, to come watch our matches. You're welcome to come out to our practices, talk to the girls after the matches. And, it's one of those sports where you can kind of get up close and personal. Our girls are great with mingling with our fans and yeah, come out for our matches. And yeah, we're always open to anyone who wants to help us, whether that's coming to watch, whether that's supporting us on a financial basis, whether that's NIL, or whether that's supporting any of our kids that are pursuing their dreams after tennis. Kind of going back to my professional tennis, the financial piece was definitely something that was tough. You've got to have the resources to make it. And yeah, come out, get to know the girls. As good of tennis players as they are, I actually believe they're better human beings. So yeah, come out, support us. College tennis is really fun to watch. Once people come out, they're like, wow, that was a whole lot of fun. I need to come out more often. It's kind of just getting them out there that first time. And yeah, come out, watch a doubles point. I think you'd be really surprised how much you enjoy it. And yeah, get to know our girls.
And I just have to say this before we wrap up, but Coach Weaver, to me, your story just encapsulates the power of a scholarship, right? And the importance of giving back to university to provide for student athlete, to open the door for them to come get a great education and set them on a trajectory for a career that will just be life-changing, right? And to me, your story really just summarizes that. And so what would be your encouragement to those listening who are considering maybe giving to the 1922 Fund Scholarship Endowment through the 12th Man Foundation, or maybe they want to give to NIL to help support those initiatives, or maybe they want to give to a sport-specific excellence fund, which they can do also through the 12th Man Foundation. What would be your encouragement to them, just having your perspective of being a student athlete who was impacted by a scholarship?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you mentioned, my story is a great story of whoever way back when gave to that fund, or whatever it was called back then. Maybe it was called the same thing. I'm not for sure. Whoever that generous person or persons was, opened up the door for me, most importantly to get, I have my diploma up in my office, and, without that funding that was given way back when, I wouldn't be sitting here today as the head coach of Texas A&M. I never would have gotten my degree from Texas A&M, and there's so many stories like that out there. And yeah, just thinking of the doors and opportunities that you would be opening up for our student athletes now, our student athletes in the future for the scholarships. And yeah, the NIL piece is definitely part of it in all sports. It's becoming an even more part of it in tennis, and that's just the ultimate reality of what recruiting is at right now. But I think there's nothing like giving to people. There's not a more rewarding feeling in life, in my opinion, whatever that looks like, whether that's funding for our scholarships, whatever it is. I don't think there's a more rewarding feeling that you can feel as a human being, of knowing that you've helped out another person to help reach their goals.
Mark Weaver on Answering the Call podcast. Coach Weaver, thank you again for joining us on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Answering the Call, the official podcast of the 12th Man Foundation. A special shout out to our incredible podcast producer, Megan Hoffman, to 12th Man Productions and Texas A&M Athletics NIL Department. We also extend our heartfelt gratitude to every donor and season ticket holder for always answering the call through loyal support of Texas A&M Athletics and our student athletes. We will be back soon with more content. Thanks, and gig 'em.